Welcome to Rockland in Motion, Part 1. This is a film series that we started really dreaming up over the summer when I know a lot of filmmakers were feeling frustrated and uncertain about the idea of making films and the future of filmmaking, especially here in Rockland. So we decided to organize this and to use it as an opportunity to connect filmmakers who are working here in the county or who have roots in the county. And we were really, really grateful that we got so many wonderful films and so many different genres. And the name is sort of a coincidence, but we got a lot of dance films, which has been really fun to be able to share with everyone. And it's great that we get to have a musician, Travis Stever, here with us to talk about that element of the films too. So I'm really excited to hear the questions that he has for all of our filmmakers. So for those who don't know Rivertown Film, we are the sole film nonprofit in the county, and we've been around since 2001. Rivertown has the belief that films exist to be seen. So I know a lot of filmmakers, especially independent filmmakers, want to exhibit their work and want to meet their audiences and want to meet each other. And Rivertown has been doing that for over 20 years. So this is a really special organization, and it has brought together a lot of wonderful filmmakers over the years. That said, Rivertown is also hosting an auction because, like a lot of arts nonprofits, they've been really hard hit by COVID, and they've adapted wonderfully, I would say, to the new virtual world, this program being one of those responses. But, you know, any kind of donation that you can make, this program is free, but we are asking for a $10 donation or more. And if you have any more than that to spend, we have an exciting auction going on 32auctions.com. You can go there and look for Rivertown Film, or it's just Rivertown, I'm sorry, 2020, and you can see over, I think we have like 20 or 30 items there now, ranging from massage to Tai Chi to a website design. So there's really a lot of interesting things that you can bid on and help raise money to keep Rivertown going. This night also couldn't have happened without our sponsor, Emerald Health. So they've made it possible for us to bring this program to you for free and to pay, although modestly, all of our filmmakers. So that is another belief that Rivertown Film has, that artists deserve to be paid for their work. So they make sure to do that. So your money will go to supporting future programs like this. That said, if you don't know our wonderful host, Travis Stever, he is someone who's really a product of the arts community here in Rockland, I would say. I know he, his band that he's most known for, Coheed and Cambria, of which he plays the guitar and sings background vocals, you know, started here in Nyack, and I think even played a bunch at Nyack Center where a lot of our films, where our films were shown. So we have this sort of interesting overlapping history. So we're excited to be able to bring Travis in because he really embodies that spirit of community, and he is actually raising his 2 children here in Nyack as well. So we're grateful to have you here tonight. And that said, if anyone hasn't used Zoom, I'm sort of taking for granted that at least you've been on at least one Zoom call, but I know that some folks, this might be your first time. So I just wanted to go over a couple of things. At the top of your screen, there is an option to do speaker view. So that will make it automatically just switch between who is talking. So you can see the filmmaker, hear them better, and just follow along easier that way. That said, it's really important to mute yourself if you're not talking, because it will switch to your computer screen if you make a sound. And it makes it more difficult for us to have a conversation. So please just make sure you're on mute unless you're speaking. And if you are going to speak, make sure to take yourself off mute. I'll try to monitor it, but it makes it a lot easier for me if you're able to do that. If you have a question for the filmmakers, please just put it into the chat. Again, Travis has brought all of his own questions for everyone, and we're going to try to stay on time and make sure that we get to them all. So we might not be able to ask questions from the audience, but we're going to try to make time for that at the end. So with that said, I think I will hand it over to Travis. And congratulations to all our filmmakers for being part of this.
Thank you, Juliana. And thank you guys for having me. I really enjoyed watching everyone's films. Like Juliana said, I have a group of my own questions, and I'm thinking that I will ask. I'm going to start with. And now, if I have any names that I do not pronounce right, you could just correct me and make sure that I have it right. But I was going to start with Myles Aronowitz. Am I pronouncing that right, Myles?
Yes, that's fine. That's good. Yeah.
And then I clearly would be speaking to Lisa Levart too. Is it Levart?
She's here too. Yeah.
Okay. So I thoroughly enjoyed watching Thunderbird, but I in the bio about Thunderbird, I had two. It's like an A and B question. What led you to that story, to covering that? And where can you find, as I've read, it's a series of you following Lisa. Where can you find more of the series?
Well, I'll answer the second question first. It's you've gotten to see the premiere episode, so
okay, that's what I thought. That's what I thought.
Yeah, we have several others, in development. One's pretty much done, and we've been working in Maine and locally in with the Ramapo Lenape, and so it's an expanding project, and we'd like to travel around all over. And then the first question was, how did we connect with Winona Goodthunder? Well, we were bringing our film about the Ramapo Lenape nation to the Parliament of World Religions in Toronto. Was it, Lisa, is it 2 years ago or last? I'm losing track of time.
Yeah, I know. I guess it's 2 years, November.
So we were there in Toronto with Chief Clara Soaring Thunder. I mean, Soaring Hawk, and so we made some connections there, and there was a person there that invited us, that told us about this other nation that she knew very well, and kind of got us an introduction. And it's all through people, it's all through people. And I think Lisa can pick it up from there.
Well, we as Myles said, we met Sue in Toronto, and she invited us to join her in Minnesota. So we said yes. It's always about saying yes. And the opportunity came, and we introduced ourselves to the community and told some of the women. There was a Winona is part of a school, for kids, very young kids, to be teaching them the language from the cradle on. And it was fascinating to meet them. And some of the women from the school were interested in doing the portrait series. So we were very excited and lucky and grateful to make the portraits with them. So that's how it came about.
That's great. Thank you. I loved it. Now, do I ask, Juliana, should I see if anybody else has any other questions?
I think we can move on to the next filmmaker.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go to the top for now, and then if anybody has to head out, I can go ahead. But I was gonna ask Frank Vitale, who definitely captures the magic that a child feels first experiencing a carnival. And I was wondering, do you remember your first memory at a carnival, and if so, where was it?
Well, you're scaring me there. I guess
I know I don't remember mine.
I don't remember exactly, but carnivals are, I I'm from Jacksonville, Florida, and we used to have carnivals, and love the lights and the smell of cotton candy, which makes me nauseous now, but I loved it then. No, I don't remember my first carnival, but I do love everything about it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. All right. Well, I guess people can chime in with other questions. I'll just do mine for now. And I was going to go on to Marta Renzi. And as I said, if I pronounce any names wrong, you could just correct me. But Marta Renzi did Dancing is an Old Friend. And I really considered this to be a joint effort with the dancers. It seemed that you were very in tune with the choice of movement shots that those women sent you. Do you have any experience with dance yourself? Is she here?
Marta.
Yeah, Mart, you gotta unmute Mart. Sorry.
Yeah, I have.
Thanks, Brooklyn.
Sorry. Yes, I have a long experience with dance. I was a dancer first. I'm still a choreographer as much, maybe getting to be more of a filmmaker. And those two young women actually danced in pieces of mine. They sort of say, remember those videos? They were ours. But you're right, it was very collaborative working with them. They initiated it. They took all the footage. They had lots of ideas about, you know, how things should go in it, what the general import of it was, which is why their names are billed first.
That's great. Yeah, I could relate to it in a lot of ways also with how, you know, especially in the world of dance, how everything's kind of come to a standstill. I mean, you could do things online, of course, but, you know, just how much everybody's craving for that personal experience.
Yeah, and interestingly, one of them doesn't dance anymore, in theory. She doesn't perform as a dancer, and yet her dancing, you can see, is still beautiful, and that is her old friend.
Yep, that was great. Well, thank you. Now I'm going to go on to Charles Caster-Dudzick, and I hope I pronounced that right, but you can correct it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Platform panic and common time. This is just my take, and it's my question. There's a theme of beauty clashing with anxiety in a harmonious way, which I think is really difficult to do. But does that come from a place of your own emotions, like how time can get its hooks in your world and, you know, the fear of age, etc.? Is that coming?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh my God, yeah. That was sometimes you start making something in one direction and realize that it kind of had its own mind throughout the time of it getting put together. And by the end of it, it really was a sort of diary entry I didn't know I was writing. And I absolutely feel the pressure of what could come down the pipeline and what has happened before and how is it affecting you still. And Platform Panic, I think a little bit more articulately than Common Time plays with, like, you know, how do you keep moving forward? And kind of the movie doesn't even answer that, where I've always been a fan of loops, and this is a sort of convenient metaphor, I don't know, about that sometimes that kind of decision and indecision can feel like a prison, and at times, you know, liberating, and at times really, really constraining. And I'm pleased with how I think the movie deals with both of those things. So I don't know, I hope. But I'm glad that came across to you, because that anxiety about time and seeing the beauty in things and also the fear in things was really a jumping off point for this. Oh, wait, I can't hear you.
I was muted. I said absolutely came through and I could connect with it. So,
Nice.
I was going to move to Paul Schwartz, because I believe that Norvin is not here, correct? Is Norvin? Okay, so we'll go back and see if they show up for Tron and DVD. But for Paul Schwartz, Time Can Break Your Heart. I answered this question for myself, and I believe that perhaps through Rockland or through the area, I had already maybe perhaps met you or met you through family, but So, but for other people that don't know the answer to this, your work in music is clearly just as important as your work in cinema. Which came first?
Oh God, no, I've been working in music for almost 40 years at this point. I started in the classical music world. I've musical directed 4 Broadway shows. I've done a lot of record production. I only got into filmmaking about, backtrack. I got into writing scripts about 10 years ago. I was writing primarily for theater. And then as a natural progression, I started to get into the idea of writing and directing my own film. And so that's only been in the last, 5 to 10 years. But interestingly, I've now partially, because I'm more interested in working in storytelling as opposed to music, and also partially because most of my work was in the record business and the record business has collapsed. That it's been a sort of a natural thing that has happened. If I may, before you ask another question, I just want to say it's fascinating to me looking around the room of all of these filmmakers, how interconnected we are. Vera and I used to live in the same building in Washington Heights many, many years ago. Myles and Lisa and I have known each other for, 25 years. Marta's children went to school with my children. Caroline Cummings was a classmate, I think, of my son Aaron. Is that correct? Yes, right? Charles, you too, or was it Matthew? But I mean, more or less the same time. Max, is your dad's name Steve? Yeah, I play tennis with him. Art and Myrna, Bridgman Packer. I mean, hello. This is a wonderful moment. And by the way, not to leave out, Frank and I have sat and talked about film editing at Starbucks on Main Street in Nyack. So it's like there's this whole wonderful little community encapsulated in this Zoom thing of the filmmaking community of Nyack and its environs. And I think that's really wonderful to talk about how both through family and through work, how interconnected we are. I think it's great.
That is. Thank you. Let me go. I guess I don't want to take too much time. So from asking too many questions on my side about things that have nothing to do with this, but if Tron and DVDs thing doesn't come up, can you just let me know, Juliana? I don't know if I'll see if they showed up. So I'm just going to move on. Right.
He's trying to get in. He's having computer issues, so hopefully we'll have them. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to go on to Brooklyn Dem. And am I pronouncing Dem right?
Demi.
Yeah.
How's
Demi.
it going?
Hi. How are you?
Good. Nice to see you.
I mean, there's a lot of things in this particular. I guess you'd call it a mini doc, correct? Like mini documentary in a way. That. Really growing up in this area, and I really connected with having my father, who had a deep interest, because we're not Native American, but having a deep interest in that world and continuously taking me to powwows and stuff like that as a kid. He always taught me a lot more about even a lot about the Ramapo tribes, and I still, with all that, was blown away at some of the things I found out in your piece. So my question is, being someone who grew up in this area, and I can see all the injustice that's been brought upon everyone there. Is there a way to assist in helping with that? Like, I mean, even just the plain fact that the structures on the property, on their own property, where they can't have a sweat lodge, that just blew my mind. And there's got to be a way that people can help with that. Not as if there isn't enough injustice going on right now around us and craziness, but on that subject alone, I mean, I'm just wondering if you know that.
For sure, absolutely. Thank you so much. You know, it's a doorway into a really big problem, and at least legally, at the moment, the story told in the film has been resolved. And I do not end the film with that resolve in honor of the open issue which exists everywhere else, both within the Ramapo community and around the earth, with indigenous people in particular, but you know, people of color, really everybody in various ways. As far as supporting the Ramapo Lenape goes right now, you know, a lot of, have people seen the Man versus Ford film?
Yeah.
So, you know, one ongoing issue is, hey, sorry, a dog just came in. They have been experienced horrendous environmental injustice dumped by the Ford Motor Company. And it's the, you know, I think the only place in the US to have received super PAC status twice. In any case, so I want to get on a different track. Just last week, they announced the opening of the First Nations Embassy, Ramapo Lenape First Peoples Embassy, which they're creating in Stony Point. And they're definitely looking to expand that network of allyship and community, certainly financial contributions, and there will be more on that forthcoming. I think Owl Smith, who introduced the film, is a point person there. And yeah, I think another way is just to, you know, be involved in your own community in a good way and try to, you know, expand our networks of who we have in our minds and hearts when we make decisions. Thanks a lot, Travis.
I agree.
Thank you, everybody.
I agree. Thank you very much. So yet again, if anybody has any other questions that's watching from the outside, just please put it over in the chat section and we'll direct it to the director. Give me 1 second here because I turned my thing off, but I knew who was next anyway, and it was Veronica Murphy. So hi. First off, as horrifying as the stuff that came up depicting women throughout the years in mainstream media and beyond, you know, of course there are laughs. There are laughs that you feel horrified for laughing after. But what is that last scene from? The whole thing happens and there's one last scene. I didn't know what that was from.
So that is Sylvia Rivera, who was a trans female activist.
Okay.
From 1970s.
I figured that was, yeah.
Yeah, she was trying to give this speech and just, you know, talk about, you know what she's advocating for. And people were being super rude and they were yelling really gross things at her. And in very classic attitude of Sylvia Rivera, she just said, "Y'all better quiet down." And it became a very famous line for her. And I thought that was the perfect way to end all of this like weird media dictation for like social expectations.
It was perfect, even not knowing what it was. So
yeah, I thought it was a good funny way to end it.
It was a great ending. And that was my only question, but I did love it. I mean, I was, you know, matter of fact, I forgot to tell my wife I wanted to sit with her and watch, you know, just to kind of be like, you know, because even in classes, I remember taking an RCC that was like hidden messages in advertisement and media and stuff. They spent quite a bit of time on how, you know, how the female was represented, and you know, it's mind blowing some of the stuff that they'll throw in there. So here, let me just try and find. So did Norvin get in here?
He's still trying. I think he might try to call in. So we could go on to Max, or we do have a couple questions from the audience. I don't know what you'd like to do.
Okay, I mean, I could ask, where are the questions from the audience? Or no, let's move on the way we were. I apologize. Okay. What happened was I lost my, I'm not sure how, but I got it. So Max Sia. Am I saying it correctly, Sia?
You are, yeah.
Awesome. Lost City. The two actors, have they been in anything before together?
Not together. The two actors were Bella Zarember, who's from Nyack, and a guy named Dekunle Samata, who's from, who I know through Brooklyn. He's from DC originally. But yeah, Dekunle is a stand-up comedian, and I thought he would be good for the role, and Bella hadn't really acted much before, so they were both pretty new to it.
Wow, it's a stand-up comedian trying to get to a stand-up comedy show in a famous
Yeah,
way.
it was actually his comedy show that we filmed at. Like he hosts that show.
That's cool. Yeah, they had a great chemistry. You'd think they worked together before, so that's cool. But thank you, Max, and thank you all for sharing it. I guess maybe we should take some guest questions.
All right. And hopefully Norman will get here. I sent him a number again, so we'll see. But I know that there was a question, or more like a statement for Frank about the Palisades Mall Carnival. I know, I think I've only gone like once or twice living here, but Vero was amazed at how beautiful Frank made it look. And I guess we could ask, like, were there certain, how did you choose the shots for that film, and how did you make it look beautiful?
Well, I like shooting at night, and there's so much color there that it's hard not to. But I guess I don't know how I made it look so beautiful. I guess it's pretty unusual that there's something so exotic right here in Rockland County that we don't really, you look at it as you're driving down the thruway, and it kind of gets your attention. But being inside of it, and the thing like the freak show, I thought that they stopped those 50 years ago, but it's still there. People get their heads chopped off, and they throw knives at pretty ladies, and swallow swords. So it was all there. Yeah, it was all there.
And so we have a question for, well, thank you, Frank. And Charles, we have a question for you. Well, from Caroline, actually, who I believe was in Platform Panic. So she wants to know how you collect your footage and where do you store all the film, and how do you work? Because it does seem like you work sort of from collage.
Aha. Sadly, it wasn't Caroline, but Caroline, you would have been great in it, I must say. It's actually another Nyack local, Sophie Goldstein, who's a graduate of Nyack High School in the drama club, and we've collaborated a handful of times. Let's see here. That was another sort of tool that revealed itself. I've always, following in the footsteps of my parents and my grandparents, have just like habitually documented everything I can, and in a certain, with a certain camera in a certain format, so that it's kind of versatile and can be used in, as B-roll in some other project. I shoot things so that maybe they're a blank slate enough to put into another project, because that sunset was so pretty, I'll be so bummed that I can't use it in this other thing unless I shoot it a certain way. So what that ended up meaning for this project in particular was combing through folders upon folders of footage that goes back to, like, I don't know, probably within, let's say, a decade, and picking shots that related to each other in motion, specifically in direction of, which way the tires were going, which way the plane is taking off, which way somebody turns to look at the camera. And the whole project became about, in the same sort of collage fashion, really just trimming it down to within an inch of its life to feel like we're being propelled forward on a roller coaster through like different shots, again, that don't really have a reason to belong together, but because of this visual motion from either directional or the subject is doing something that that bridges the gap from time and space to time and space. It kind of revealed itself and wasn't really planned so much as, oh, this is the only thing that can be next. When I found that little chunk of footage, well, this has to be the two faces I need right now. This has to be that first moment where we're still in sort of transportation mode and we see cars driving by, that sort of thing. It fell very naturally into order, and I was just there to kind of choose exactly where to put the tape and where to get out of there before it's too late, before it's overstayed its welcome.
Thank you, Charles.
You guys, my God.
Now, I have one question. Caroline Cummings? Yeah, hi. Now, I was a little confused. Did you co-direct one of the films as well?
No, yes, but I don't think.
Which
in
film?
part two. Oh, in the part two. So there's in the second part. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you co-directed the second part of that, which was
Of the series, of the film series. So she'll be in the one in October.
Oh, okay. So
yeah,
I
yeah. No, I think it was a
film.
confusion. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't
With
see
me
the film.
actually.
I was scared that I missed a film. Okay.
No,
All right.
you're good. You're good. But I think I was personally interested in what Charles was saying about the idea of collage, how he works with just like the movement and editing pieces together. If other filmmakers found that to speak to their process at all, or if they work differently. I don't know if anyone wants to chime in there, but I'd just be curious if anybody had anything to say on that. Especially Veronica, because I felt similar with your footage, the way it was found.
So for my footage, I really liked, I mean, you have to use the real footage really to convey it because there's so much historically to pick from in that way. But I think that like, there's definitely something very like raw about like jarring quick footage like that and like the authenticity behind it, you know, even like Charles was saying, you know, like B-roll from different moments. It's all about like what it emotionally conveys, less than this like forethought of planning beforehand. You know, sometimes you'll like look at a sunrise and it conveys, you know, a visual feeling that you know you're going to want to use later or something like that. So I have a whole folder of advertisements that I'm just like, I don't know what it is that really grinds my gears about this, but I'm going to get around to it eventually. I'll figure it out.
Are there other questions for the filmmaker, Travis? I'm not sure if you're getting some in, because I know some I'm not seeing. Oh, we just got one from Frank.
Yeah, I'm running into these like little issues here where I'm trying to
That's
clear
okay.
my thing out. I apologize.
No, that's okay.
Here
I can
am.
ask
I'm
it.
back.
Yeah.
I'm back.
Do you see Frank's question?
I do now, I believe. Let me go. 2 new messages. Here we go. Paul's film was brilliant for a number of reasons, but the writing was standout. Amazing how we were teased throughout. Okay. And so Paul, was that, I'm going to take a question out of what Frank is writing to you and ask, where did the vision for what that theme in your story come from? Have you experienced something like that with family? Is it something personal or?
Not directly, no. It was more just playing with the idea of memory and and the idea of, I mean, I don't know if has everybody wave your hand if you've seen the film, because I don't want to, has everybody seen the film? Okay, so there's no spoilers here. The idea that presenting this world that is, as you first experience it, it's its own reality, but what you find out is that it's all inside his head, and it's the sort of flipped metaphor of she can't remember him, but what's really happening is that he's beginning to not remember her. And I found that overlapping contradiction to be a sort of an interesting thing to talk about when you're dealing with somebody who died, 25, 27 years ago, or whatever it was. I mean, how old is Billy? Billy is pushing 30, so he was a little boy when she died. And I was very intrigued with that idea, and how this character is clinging to the memory of her at the same time that as he ages, she is fading into nothingness. So I just found that a very interesting kind of writing problem.
Absolutely. And we have a question also from Matthew Sieg for Marta. Many people have remarked on the number of dance films in this program and program 2. In general, and in a small community of filmmakers in Rockland County, is there a special connection between film and dance? Okay, you got it.
Yes, sorry.
That's okay.
Well, I think there is a special connection from when film first began. Loie Fuller, and she was one of the one who moved the things, because when sound wasn't synced, motion, something visual that showed that we were no longer in the world of photography, made a huge statement. And I think, for a more modern moment, Charles just described motion across the screen, which is a kind of dancing, even if it doesn't depict dancing. And I think one of the things that is interesting about this program and the other, which I haven't seen in full yet, is that there's an interplay between how a story can be told without words. I'm sure those of you like Paul and Max and Brooklyn in his way, of course, you're also designing motion because you're editing, but the story is told, the time passes as much more through words and narration, which obviously is one of the other gifts of film in how it relates to theater. I've probably said enough. But yeah, for me, for me personally, dancing and film are a natural and have become more and more so. But every edit is motion, every edit is either motion of the story and or at the same time carrying the eye in some place that feels kinetic. I have a very broad view of what dancing is anyway. It's light flickering, people gesturing, editing happening, even thoughts progressing, probably for you more narrative filmmakers. I won't go on. I'm muting myself.
Oh, that was great. The next question is to all filmmakers. And I guess if there's a way that we could do this, maybe I could ask down the line. That's the best way we could do this. But it's from Deborah, I believe it's Krikun. I can't, I want to make sure I'm pronouncing the name right. But she's asking, she says, congratulations to all filmmakers. We would like to hear about the music choices for the films. Frank Vitale, if you want to start and just talk about your music choices, and we'll just go down the line of filmmakers.
I don't know if anybody else out there uses Audio Network, but there's thousands of films, so thousands of music cuts, and I put in a couple of words that that resonate with what I'm doing, and then I get back hundreds of cuts, and I just listen to them, and then some of them feel right. These are all British composers that are in this film, and they have a quality to them that I've found unique, kind of a bouncy, fun, but a little bit eerie quality to them, and it worked right with the film, and so that's who they are. I showed it to my son, and he said, "Hey, it looks like a bit of a silent movie." So I went down that route with the music and also with the cards.
Thank you. Marta?
Maybe like Charles, who has a repertoire of visual images, I am collecting music all the time for future reference. And in this one, there's music by a tango group that I made another piece to, but never actually ended up using their music. There's music from a great woman named Martha Mook, who has made some scores for film, but is a electric violinist. And sort of most importantly for me, there's someone who I've been collaborating with a lot lately named Emily Holden, whose some of her pre-recorded music I used, and she also played this beautiful hymn at the end on spec. I mean, for that one I said, okay, Emily, we need something as touching as the original music that solo was made to, but quieter. Can you play me something? And she delivered like that.
Thank you. That's awesome. So next, well, for anybody who didn't hear it, maybe Charles, you could talk about how you got your music choice.
Sure. First one, Common Time is fairly straightforward. I knew it needed to be a certain kind of pulse and sort of sparse. I went to Nyack local, Nyack high school grad, Ethan Cohen, and said, play some stuff like this, and I recorded it and sort of fit it to my needs. But Platform Panic actually started with the song. I wrote the song as a loop with a guitar and felt a 3-act structure in there. When I was in high school, I used to write to music specifically because scripts did not come naturally. Like it's not how my brain works, but I would write music videos to the scores of films because I didn't think the visuals were doing the audio justice, and would write like different movies to that music. And I thought I'll try that with my own stuff. Recorded a sort of scratch track thing again with this arc, beginning, middle, end, and then took that, really arranged it with different instruments and laid out the visual edit on top of that, and had, you know, this great grid to stick to. So that in my case, the music came first.
And when the music came first, so now we're discussing Platform Panic. When the music came first, did you kind of, from the music, create that idea? Or was it just like, were you listening to it and that's the visual you got?
I felt the sort of chapters of build-up, intensity, downtime, and resolution, and felt a sort of straightforward narrative for the first part, and cut it straightforward with the very linear action of her on the platform. And then when this sort of more bubbly chapter happens, the actual pace of the music and what was going on in there felt like it necessitated this sort of scrambly visual. And again, it just sort of came into line. Like I had the song structure, I felt the loose story structure, and as a music video maker is wont to do, tie as best one can the cutting of these visuals to perhaps the beats of the song, or just like the emotional intensity of the song in this particular moment. So rambled a little bit, but again, they just kind of, they naturally married. Like I knew that this part needed roughly this, and that editing became a chore of just making sure that both of them are working together. Because I know that this moment needs this, does this footage actually do that? And then wiggling around there.
Cool. Thank you. So I guess Norvin didn't sign in still. I was going to ask Myles, and I guess Myles is gone. So I'll ask Lisa kind of how you guys went for the music.
I think actually with Thunderbird, I'm sorry, Myles isn't still on, but I think there's no music. But usually there is with many of the little vignettes. And we try to use a musician who's involved with whatever tribe or nation we're filming. So hopefully someone there will know somebody and we can lift their music into it as well. So this one in particular, though, didn't have any actual music. It was really the sound, the nature sounds were part of it, which were very important because it's about thunder and the meaning of the symbolic meaning of what thunder, the story of thunder is for the Lower Sioux tribe.
Absolutely. Thank you. Paul Schwartz, so for Time Can Break Your Heart, let us know how you kind of came up with everything.
Well, I wrote the music, and I actually wrote quite a lot of it before we filmed, which doesn't mean that I had a score that I dropped in. I had a lot of material. I mean, first of all, it's a 14-minute film, and I think there's 5 minutes of music total. So it's quite sparse, but it's important. It's very important in terms of the setting of the mood. And I actually like, because I write my own music for filmmaking, I like to have it up front because I can give it to other people in the crew so they understand what the atmosphere of the film is. Music is tremendously important for creating a sense of beyond the images of what the sound world is. And when everybody is part of that, the actors as well, the DP, I actually gave it to, like, you know, the grips, and I mean, I just wanted everybody to know what it would sound like before we filmed so that we knew what we were talking about. It's, for me, as I, you know, coming from a musical background, it's always the temptation to write your own music. And I did on this film. I'm not sure that I will always continue to do that. There's a very famous question that was asked to Stephen Sondheim. Somebody said to him, you know, Mr. Sondheim, you write the lyrics and you write the music for your musicals. Why don't you write the book? And he said, because if I wrote the book, there would be no friction. And the idea of that, if there isn't somebody else to bounce stuff off of to get that, you know, it's like, you know, the best description of collaboration is two people fighting together because I have this idea and you have this idea, and we fight and fight and fight. And then we get a third idea, which is better than the other two, and we wouldn't have arrived at it if we hadn't been fighting over those two ideas. So the friction, I think, is important, and I'm cognizant of that. I know I can continue to write my own music if I want to, but I'm not sure I'm going to always want to. So it's you know, it's relinquishing the thing that I have the most connection to through time, but it might be smart for me to do that going forward.
I definitely agree about the collaboration stuff, but nonetheless, the music worked perfect for this. So I was going to go to Brooklyn now and ask how you got some of the music.
Right on. I love this conversation. Music's always such a beautiful part of the film viewing experience. In the place where the people gather, there are two songs that I'd like to, that come to mind immediately, which are one, when we're hearing the woodpecker story, pileated woodpecker story from Two Clouds. and then later on when Owl brings us to his grandfather's burial site. And in both of those instances, with the blessings of the people who carry the Ramapo medicine songs, different people held the melodies in different ways, in different instrumentations. So on the Pileated Woodpecker song, it's my dear friend Waylon Roche entering the Ramapo welcome song on acoustic piano. And later on, it is when we're with Owl in the mountains, that is the song, the traditional song For Our Women, which in each case then leads into the traditional voice and drum pronouncement. So that was a really special part, you know, a way of collaborating behind the scenes.
Thank you. That's awesome. Okay, we're gonna ask Veronica, but I'm not sure. I think that because it was just all clips, but you can answer that.
Yeah, in other things that I've worked on, other projects, I've always worked with my cousin, and it's been a really good, fruitful collaboration. She just graduated NYU last year for film scoring, so it's a very convenient connection there. But she and I don't usually actually communicate. I tell her mainly what, you know, I'm thinking. I don't tell her what it's about, and she comes back at me, and I find that that's been the best, because if I get too in my own head, and I relate a lot to what Paul was saying with the friction, if I just have too much control, it's what I think it should be, and I really don't know as much as other people know sometimes, you know, and it's really important to know how important other opinions are and other influences are and other vibes and sounds are. And I have never not loved doing that. At first, it was very stressful because you want to have so much control. But when you relinquish it completely to somebody who knows eons more than you about, about music like that, it's always just been really great.
Awesome. Very, very coincidental that you would want to be a filmmaker, and that would you say your cousin?
Yeah, my cousin Genevieve, she's 2 years older than me. So it worked out.
You guys work on things before, you know, when you were younger? Like, would you work on film stuff, and was she working on music for that when, like, you know, in younger years? Because I know we used to, my family, and we always would make, like, you know, little movies when we were younger, like just, you know, weird little things. In my area, I'm gonna date myself, but it would be one of those huge hand cams, and, you know, my parents would have it, and we'd be like, we'd get a hold of it, and we'd make some movie with like 9 scenes in it, and we'd try and add like some music to it, you know? So were you guys doing that when you were younger, or did it just come on?
I never really sought out to be a filmmaker. I was just an artist practicing tons of different things. I started out, I wanted to be an animator when I was a kid, then a fashion designer, and then I wanted to be a cashier. I was a woman of many hats. And my cousin, before she walked, she knew that she wanted to play music. She was just a musical soul. And I always just colored and drew, and art was always just the one thing I had going for me. And I fell 2 feet in by accident into working with video because I thought it was really interesting. And the one thing I've always known is that I'm not good at music at all, and Genevieve is. So it worked out. And trying to not be a control freak is pretty good for me too. So it's been a good trust exercise.
Good. It's good you guys have that relationship. So Max, if you want to tell us how you got your musical.
Yeah, so I, like Charles, was kind of writing with the music in mind. I was listening to this album called Sexotica by Steve Bernstein, his band Sex Mob, who is from Nyack, and it kind of guided the writing, you know, in a way. I was interested in telling these stories about people who got lost in New York City, and kind of like the adventure that might stem from that, but then also the potential for danger that might stem from that. And so the music really kind of captured both like the exoticism of a new place that you haven't been before, and the fun of it and the excitement, and then also the potential danger and paranoia. So luckily Steve is a friend, and he let me use that music for the film. And then I also threw in a Martin Denny song that was kind of like dreamy at one point. So yeah, it was kind of all in the same line.
Cool, thank you. So there's a couple more questions that we're gonna give from the comments, and we're gonna try and fit them in. I don't know if how are we on time? We're okay.
We're getting like another maybe 5 minutes or so, and then we can wrap up.
And how could I waste time asking how much? So this one's for Veronica, and it's from Eric Reynolds. And it says, I found it interesting that you used what felt like a lighthearted approach to show obvious gender bias and inequality in old media. Did you find that the approach opens up the conversation more easily?
That's a great question. Yeah, I don't think I've ever met somebody that doesn't like laughing. And if I have, I haven't spent much time talking to them. So I think it's, you know, there's a lot going on, especially this year. I'm not sure how much more we can take this year, particularly. And the most you can do is laugh through these weird things. And it's easier to talk about it when, you know, you can sit there and say, well, I'm definitely switching to Maxwell House now because Folgers lost my vote. and you can talk about why. Everybody has these chaotic lived experiences, but sometimes it's more fun to have a laugh about it and say, oh, thank God that we're past the way the 1950s were doing it. But I think when you laugh at something, it sticks with you too, in a way that's different. Sometimes if it's too serious or too sad or too intense, you know, everybody's sad and intense. They have a lot going on. Life is awful a lot of the time. So, you know, you just want to dismiss it. When you laugh, you talk about it more. You're like, you have to see this video. It was so ridiculous. So I like making light of it because I think you'll notice it more because you'll think about it more often. You know, you'll look at a commercial now and you'll be like, that's not that different from that Folgers commercial. So, yeah.
Cool. This is a question from Frank to Paul. Now that the music world is not an option, it's a hard one for me to read. Do you plan on making dramatic features?
Let me just clarify that. The music world is not an option for everybody.
No,
it's not an option for the kind of stuff that I used to do, which is reliant on large orchestras. And it's fine if, you know, if you're making a movie and you're John Williams and you're Steven Spielberg, that's fine. But for making the kind of quote unquote popular music records that I made in the late 90s going into the early 2000s, the budgets just aren't there. So I don't want to discourage anybody out there who's listening to this who wants to be in the music world. There's all kinds of things that you can do. It's just not what I know how to do. But yes, yes, the answer is I in fact, there is a feature script that is this short film is kind of a trailer for the feature. It's one episode within the feature. It's slightly different, obviously, in the context of the feature, but it tells a story of the character of George is a sculptor, and he has hit sculptor's block, writer's block, because of what happened to his wife who died. And he is brought out of it by a young woman who's an art historian, not romantically, but by reawakening in him a sense of the potential of art. And so I'm trying to develop that script into a feature.
Cool. Well, good luck. I hope it goes well. Okay, this is from Cheryl for Brooklyn and Lisa and Myles. Thank you for amplifying the voices of the indigenous communities you work with. wondering if you encountered, this is a great question, if you encountered any resistance when you first started your projects, or did they welcome the opportunity to get their stories out there?
Thanks for that question, Cheryl. Yeah, I think first of all, I'm always very conscious of being a white woman walking into another community that I don't, and I didn't know anybody from that world, which was what made it fascinating to me to start to work with the women from the Rampo Lenape Nation. So, but what I have found is by approaching it from my heart, and that I have a long history of working with women and doing portraits from the women's point of view, that not everybody, but it speaks to some of the women. And the way I approached it was had community meetings first. I had 2 community meetings that were open to any woman from the nation. And I came and talked about myself. So I didn't jump in and start taking pictures. I first established relationships. And from the community meetings that we had at the tribal house, I told them who I was and what I was hoping to do with them, and that I wanted to raise their voices. Certainly there were some women that did not want to participate. And then the ones that it spoke to participated. And whoever said they wanted to, I wanted to work with them. That's how it worked for me. Yeah. Brooklyn, how about you?
Right on. Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Cheryl. In all social justice documentary work, especially for us white filmmakers in POC spaces, Black and Indigenous in particular, for sure, it's highly, highly sensitive, and I think central to the process, because on the one hand, I mean, you know, we white documentarians can be such a nightmare to work with. And there's the potential of entering into a space and, you know, using this tool to extract stuff and take it out and then show it to other people for whatever reason. But, you know, the purpose is to uplift and not to entertain. And I think it incurs a lot of really important questions about why you're doing it and what's really going on. So I think, like Lisa said, it's very much a heart process. And for me, it's also very much a community organizing praxis. And like, you know, there's a thing of, like Lisa was saying, it's very much about the relationship building. And there's a difference between holding a camera from the outside versus understanding that while the outsider status can never be changed, within that still seeking to hold the camera on behalf of a community and be the camera operator for the community. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend this to others, but in this film experience, you know, I didn't I never brought a single release form out, because that is kind of, that didn't feel right, you know, asking somebody to sign away. And conversely, not having the release form, not introducing the legality, is very comfortable within an ongoing social flow, with more just like natural organic commitments that continue to grow.
Thank you.
I'll just say one other thing to what Brooklyn mentioned about taking, like that I don't think you are either, Brooklyn, taking images with stills, but I feel that I'm, and I think, I hope the women recognize it, that I want to be a vessel for them rather than taking it. What do you want to say? I always say, what do you want to show of yourself? And what do you want to present to the world? And I will be that vessel to help you, you know, if I can. So.
Amen. If I could jump in real quick, Lisa, in seeing your film this evening, I saw right before the program, I was really touched by that precise experience. And I think, you know, in a lot of this art, in the film in particular, it really speaks. And I think something special about this collaboration you and Myles are undertaking is that we have the rare gift of seeing that relationship unfold. So not just seeing the women that you're working with presenting themselves with, you know, wonderful dignity and honor and beauty and grace in the space that, you know, you're co-creating, but we get to see you co-create it. And it's a cool experience.
Well, great. Thank you, Brooklyn.
Thank you all. So Juliana, how are we looking here?
Yeah, so I think that's about time. I did want to say before we all leave that we did want to just bring to your attention that Rivertown is here for your ideas. I know Matthew and Vera have been really open to just sort of taking this new virtual situation and looking for the opportunities in it. So if anyone has any ideas for like future programs or events you might want to have virtually or otherwise, hopefully one day in person too, to be of support to filmmakers during this time, just let us know. We'll try to make it happen. And part 2 of the program goes live a week from today, so on the 30th. So there'll be 9 more films, and then a similar conversation to what we just had tonight. So hopefully you can all be there for that too. And again, there's the auction. I think maybe Vera, if you could put the link in again in the chat, we could, if you do have anything to spare, that would be a great way to support us. And if not, just being here in your presence really means a lot. So thank you all for coming. And thank you again to Travis for giving us your time. And
thank you again for having me. So you could tune in September 30th to see the second?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's going to go live on rivertownfilm.org. And
October 7th is the next meeting.
Yes, is the next Zoom conversation. So yeah, we hope to see you all there.